everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Deanna and you're watching Orchie. And today I just wanted to introduce you to a group of my dendrobiums that I call my continuous care dendrobiums. That is that they all virtually require pretty much the same care for me in my environment year round. There are certain plants with slightly different variations, but for the most part they don't need a dry winter's rest, and they are watered year round. So of these plants, many of them are found in the New Guinea region and surrounding areas, including Northern Australia, so far north Queensland, Philippines, Indonesia, and in my collection I have 3 or 4 main types, and these are the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type, or the Phalaenopsis group, the Latoria types, the Spatulata types, and then the other one is the Calyptrichilus, which I only have a couple of orchids. But basically, yeah, they all require very similar care. Now they're all kept up here on in my indoor grow space. Not sure what little Frankie. Hello, hey. So they're kept at a western facing window, which is really quite bright. It's a bit dark today, but they get a good amount of afternoon sun, but pretty much bright light still all day. And we're going to go through a few of them today. So of my collection, we'll go through the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis or Phalaenopsis type first. And these do include the actual species Dendrobium Phalaenopsis and Dendrobium bigibum, plus a few others. And these guys, well, at least the Phalaenopsis and the bigibum type dendrobiums are found in far north Queensland. They're natives there. And you can see they've got a similar sort of growth habit, so they can grow quite large. And unlike the nobile types, they don't lose their leaves. They're pretty much evergreen, but after some time they will start to lose leaves off old canes. You can see that one there. And this varies between plant to plant, how long they keep their leaves. Their flowers tend to be quite unique. They are named as such because they look a little bit like the Phalaenopsis flower. So they've got large petals, and they've got sort of symmetrical sepals that are a little bit triangular shaped, a little bit pointier, and relatively small lips. And you can see at the moment for me they're all pretty much in active growth. This one is the newest cane for that. This one's growing a new cane there. This one's got a new growth happening there. This is one that I repotted in a video recently. And back here you can see that one has a new cane, but it's also spiking. Now I think it's a little bit confused because it's already spiked recently. I got it in spike and I cut off that flower spike, but it's produced another one off just at the base of that first leaf. And unfortunately, it's not my favorite flower. If I can find a photo of it, I will. I'll put it up in the top corner of the screen. But yeah, I don't like the color of this flower, and this plant is not a favorite of mine. But boy, it is vigorous. So yeah, you win some, you lose some. And then these are a couple of rescues from my grandma. Actually, there's a plant back here, and this is a keiki of that one. So these guys are warm to hot growers. They love the heat. They really get a kick out of the heat. They like bright filtered light, and they pretty much like to be watered year round. I'm going to say this with pretty much all my dendrobiums, but they should be watered and fed heavily during active growth. So if they've got new growths coming up, until they sort of get to the end of maturity like this, you want to feed them with every watering or every second watering, and you want to keep them fairly evenly moist actually. So I know dendrobiums are meant to dry out between each watering, and I do agree that that's sensible in winter, but I think in summer, as long as you've got a well draining mix, these guys will drink. They drink a lot, and they drink it very rapidly. So I'm finding with the recent heat wave, I was having to water them every second day, and that's slowed down a little bit now that it's cooled off a bit, but yeah, they do consume a lot of water when they're feeding, and you have to give it to them to make sure you get nice big plump pseudobulbs. Here we've got my spatulata or antelope types, and they're named this way because of their very unique little spirally petals on the flowers. And I treat these guys exactly the same as my Phalaenopsis type dendrobiums. So they get watered heavily during growth, and when those growths are mature, I let them dry out a little bit between waterings, and they get bright filtered light. They don't get direct sunlight. Also, like the Phalaenopsis types, they like it warm. They will grow warm to hot. You don't mind the heat, but you just got to keep them watered. You can see these guys are all in active growth as well. Got a second growth coming up on the back there. This one's a very new addition. I haven't changed the medium. It's in rock at the moment. It's growing that lead. This one is just coming up with a new growth down there. This one too has a couple of growths. It's got this one and another growth coming up here. This one is just popping out a growth here as well. And this little one is also growing this growth. So I've got a few Latoria types. I've got 3 actually. So I've got a Dendrobium spectabile back here. And this is called Dendrobium firewings, which is a cross with a bigibbum actually. So it's 25% Phalaenopsis type and 75% Latoria. And this one back here, which still has one flower remaining, is Dendrobium little apples, which is a hybrid, but it's possibly a primary hybrid. I'm not 100% sure. These guys are primarily New Guinea orchids, and you can see they've all got quite a sort of similar shape. They start off quite narrow at the base, and then they plump up and narrow out again at the top, and they all seem to look like this. See that one at the back there as well? Looks very similar. Now, the main thing to note with this is that you must not plant them too deep, and that base is especially prone to rotting, especially in winter if it's potted just a little bit too deep, and it's kept a little bit too wet and too cold, they will rot. And that is what happened with this one. I lost quite a few pseudobulbs during the last winter. So it's something to be mindful of, but otherwise they pretty much require the same care as well as the spatulata and the Phalaenopsis types. However, they can tolerate it a bit cooler in winter, so they don't mind it a little bit cooler and a little bit drier, although there's different types, so the different species, you do have to look them up as to how cool they can tolerate. Some are cooler than others depending on the altitude they're normally found at, But yeah, generally that's the only real difference, and I pretty much still treat them the same. But you will notice for the spatulata and the Phalaenopsis types, you don't really want them to get below about 15 degrees Celsius in the winter. So these guys can't really stay outside during winter, whereas the Latoria types, some of them do just fine outside in winter for me, where it gets down to roughly 7 degrees Celsius at night. They are all also in active growth. So you can see this Dendrobium spectabile is in active growth. This is the newest pseudobulb. And if you remember, when I came back from holidays, this was just a little nubbin. And in just over a month, it has grown this whole length of pseudobulb. So it's doing very well. I've never seen it flower, so hopefully this one will flower for me. Now the last two I have to show you are here. I've got a Dendrobium hibiki, which is flowering on this tiny little plant, which I'm very surprised about. But look at the colour, isn't it great? Let me just lift that up. Its flowers are growing in this awkward sort of spot, but love the colour. Look how sparkly it is. Anyway, just 4 flowers on a tiny little pseudobulb, but yeah. So Dendrobium hibiki is a primary hybrid between Dendrobium levifolium and bracteosum. I think I said them right. Which are actually both in the same group of, I think it's Calyptrochylis. These names are really difficult for me, but again, they're year-round orchids. They're both found in the New Guinea region as well at various altitudes, but I do believe the difference is that they prefer to be kept a little bit more shaded. So this is Dendrobium lewisii, which I believe also, like both of them, are okay in Phalaenopsis light. Now, I must say, like, I haven't taken a lot of notice. I've actually been just growing them with my Phalaenopsis types, and I don't know how I managed to get these blooms, but you know, I'll take them. I don't think it's anything specific that I've done. I've just been watering them and feeding them, and they are growing. So this one has quite a few new growths. It's got 1, 2, 3, I think 3 or 4 new growths there. And this is Dendrobium lewisii, which is not a big plant either, but I do think it's still very young, and it's got 2 new little growths coming up there. So these guys do like to be kept moist as well year round, and they you can see this one is deciduous somehow. I haven't had it for long enough to really know how long the leaves last for, but I think this growth is from a couple of years ago, whereas these 2 down here are actually the most recent ones, and because it got sent to me bare root, it got sent back last year, and that's all it grew. So I'm hoping these ones will be a bit better that are coming up now. But from what I've seen in pictures, they flower off old canes and new canes, so I'm not sure what this one's going to do, but I don't really believe that it's flowering size yet anyway. So everyone, that's it. That's my collection of continuous care dendrobiums, the ones that need watering pretty much year round and moderate lighting. I reckon they're really easy orchids actually. They're, you know, just except for maybe the little note that I made about the Latorias being a little bit prone to rotting, they just require the same care year round. You don't have to worry about dry winter's rest. They're really all very vigorous. They grow new growths very readily. They root very readily. So yeah, I think they're forgiving, and I think they're pretty easy for beginners. But yeah, I would still water them regularly, let them drain very well, and wait till they're pretty much dry before you water them again in winter. But in summer, when they're actively growing, you just water them freely and feed them pretty freely, because you really want to push those growths to their maximum potential, get them nice and strong, and then they'll be more likely to bloom as well. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more orchid videos. I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Happy growing until then. Bye!